The car had gone quiet before she was ready to move. At 5:54, the porch light was already on, though the sky had not fully given up its color. Across the street, a neighbor's garage door rose with its tired little groan. Somewhere farther down, tires passed over a wet patch in the road. Life kept going in its ordinary way. Beside the steering wheel, her keys stayed in her palm. On the floor, the grocery bag leaned softly against the mat, paper creased at the top, a few cans settled against one another inside. It was such a small thing. A bag brought in after work. A few things her mother needed. Soup, fruit, the brand of crackers she liked. For years, care like that had felt automatic, almost invisible. Now it had weight. Not heavy exactly. Just real. And understanding came late, the way evening comes late, touching everything after the day has already happened. She did not take the bag inside right away. Her hand was still around the keys, the metal edges pressed lightly into her skin. The engine had been off for a minute, maybe two, but the car still held a little warmth from the road. The seat belt had left a faint line across her sweater. Her phone was face down in the cup holder, quiet for once, though she knew there would be messages later. There were always messages later. Inside the house, her mother would be moving slowly between the kitchen and the small table, pretending she had not been waiting. Not in a dramatic way. Not standing by the window the way someone might in a movie. Just nearby. Close enough to hear the car pull in. Close enough to say, when the door opened, that she had only just sat down. That was how care often sounded in that house. Small and covered over. Her mother had said she did not need much. A few groceries. Nothing special. Maybe the low-sodium soup if it was on sale, and the bananas that were still a little green. Paper towels, but only if they were not too expensive. The crackers with the blue label, not the red one, because the red ones tasted different somehow. Her daughter had nodded while standing in the store aisle, one hand on the cart, one hand scrolling through the list. It had felt simple then. A stop on the way home. One more place under fluorescent lights. One more receipt folded and pushed into a purse with old gum wrappers and a pen that no longer worked. But here in the driveway, the bag looked different. It sat on the floor as if it had been carrying more than groceries. It carried the quiet math of remembering. The small decisions no one sees. The choosing of the right brand. The checking of dates. The bending down to lift something ordinary, then carrying it through a doorway as if this were nothing at all. A car passed behind her, its headlights sweeping briefly over the dashboard. For a second, the paper bag glowed pale, then returned to its plain brown color. The street kept moving. A teenager walked a dog past the mailbox. Someone across the way closed a trunk. A basketball bounced twice in a driveway and then stopped. The evening had the familiar suburban sound of people finishing things, doors shutting, engines cooling, dinner pans being set down, a television already on in some other room. Nothing looked important from the outside. That was the strange tenderness of it. So much of a life could hide inside an ordinary hour. A daughter sitting in a parked car. A mother waiting without admitting she was waiting. A grocery bag on the floor. Keys held for one more breath because going in meant becoming useful again. She thought of all the times her mother must have done this without ever making it a story. Coming home with bags cutting into her fingers. Setting milk in the refrigerator. Remembering who liked what. Taking something from the freezer because money was tight, or because there would be practice later, or because someone had a bad day and needed something warm. She had not called it care then. It was just dinner. Just a ride. Just laundry. Just a hand reaching for whatever was needed next. The word just had covered so much. Now she could feel the weight beneath it. Not guilt exactly. The feeling was quieter than that. It was more like standing at the edge of a room she had lived in for years and noticing, for the first time, how much had been holding it up. The light worked. The counter was wiped. The fridge had something in it. Someone had remembered the small things before they became problems. Someone had been tired. The porch light ahead of her looked soft through the windshield. It made a yellow oval on the steps, the kind of light that never asked to be noticed. Her mother had probably turned it on before the daughter arrived, not because it was dark enough yet, but because that was what she had always done. Light first. Then the door. Then the voice from inside saying, "Come in, honey, it's open." The grocery bag shifted slightly when she moved her foot. A can touched another can with a dull, small sound. She breathed in, and for a moment she did not hurry. She let the keys stay in her palm. She let the street pass behind her. She let the house wait in its quiet way. Understanding had come late. But it had come with both hands full. The visit itself had not looked like anything that would stay with her. There had been a few bags on the counter, The soft plastic sound of produce being set down, the refrigerator door opening with that familiar pull. Her mother had stood near the sink with one hand resting on the edge, watching each item find its place. Apples in the bowl. Soup in the cabinet. Crackers on the second shelf, where she could reach them without stretching. The kitchen had been cooler than the rest of the house. Maybe the heat had not come on yet. Maybe the afternoon light had already moved away from that side of the room. The window over the sink held a pale reflection of the backyard, the fence, the narrow strip of grass that had browned a little at the edges. A dish towel hung from the oven handle. A mug sat near the microwave, with tea gone cold at the bottom. Her mother had apologized for the mess. There was no real mess. Only a spoon in the sink, a folded grocery list on the table, and a small stack of mail she had not opened yet. But the apology came anyway, the old habit of wanting a room to look ready for someone else, even when that someone was her own daughter. The daughter had said it was fine. And it was fine. It was more than fine. It was a kitchen that had held so many years without asking to be admired. A kitchen where lunchboxes had once been packed before school. Where the phone had hung on the wall with a stretched out cord. Where someone had stood late at night rinsing a pan after everyone else had gone to bed. She had not thought of that while she was young. Back then, the room had simply existed. The milk was there. The light was on. The counter had a place for homework, bills, birthday cards, permission slips, coupons, keys. If something ran out, it appeared again. If something broke, someone noticed. If the day was hard, there was still a plate set down somewhere, still a voice calling from another room. So much had been ordinary because someone made it ordinary. Her mother had moved more slowly now. Not helplessly. Just carefully. One hand on the counter when she turned. A pause before bending toward the lower cabinet. A small laugh when she could not remember why she had opened the drawer. The daughter had watched and felt something in her chest change shape, but she had not named it. Naming it would have made it too large for the room. So she put the soup away. She checked the date on the milk. She tore the paper towel wrapper open because her mother liked one roll left on the counter. She folded the grocery bag flat at first, then changed her mind and left it whole for recycling, because her mother still used them to line the small trash can under the sink. Even that felt like memory. A grocery bag was never only a grocery bag in that house. It had carried lunches, old newspapers, library books, shoes that needed to be returned, a sweater borrowed and given back. It had sat on counters and floors, near back doors and car seats, waiting for someone to remember where it was supposed to go. Now one of those bags sat on the floor of the car, after the visit was finished. The daughter looked down at it and saw the kitchen again. Not as a perfect place. Not as a scene made clean for remembering. Just the room as it had been. The faint smell of dish soap. The refrigerator hum. The worn place near the cabinet handle where years of hands had touched the paint. Her mother standing there, making light of the things that had become harder. Outside the windshield, the porch light stayed on. The street was still busy in the soft way of early evening. A delivery truck slowed at the corner. A man in a work shirt carried 2 takeout bags up his front steps. Somewhere a child called out, and another voice answered from inside a house. Her own house would be cooling down too, waiting for her to return. There would be dishes, mail, a message she had not answered, the small duties that did not care whether a person had just felt the past move through a paper bag. She did not resent them. She only sat there a little longer, feeling how care passed from one hand to another, often without a thank you, often without anyone noticing the moment it changed direction. The keys warmed in her palm. For once, she did not rush to put them away. There are some rooms a person does not understand until later. Not because they were hidden. Not because anyone kept them secret. They were there the whole time, plain as the kitchen table, plain as the small clock above the stove, plain as the grocery bag waiting by the door to be taken out to the car. Her mother's house had always looked ordinary from the outside. A short driveway. A porch step with a little crack near one corner. A mailbox that leaned slightly after too many winters. In summer, the grass went dry no matter how often someone remembered to water it. In fall, leaves gathered along the curb and stayed there until the wind finally moved them down the street. Nothing about it announced love. It was just a house. But now, sitting in the car, she could feel how much life had been held inside the plainness. The hallway where shoes had been kicked off. The kitchen where someone had stood after work, still in the close of the day, turning on a burner. The small table where bills were sorted, school forms signed, coupons clipped, envelopes opened with a thumbnail because the letter opener was never where it was supposed to be. She had grown up inside all of that without knowing the size of it. Maybe everyone does, in some way. A child walks through a room and sees what is missing or what is wanted. The cereal that is not the favorite kind. The ride that comes 5 minutes late. The parent who says not now because the pot is boiling over, because the phone is ringing, because the laundry has buzzed, because dinner still has to become dinner. Only later does the same child become an adult and begin to hear the other sounds. The tired breath before the parent answers. The cabinet closing softly because someone else is sleeping. The sink running after midnight. The car door opening in the dark after one more errand no one asked about. The daughter looked down at the grocery bag. It had a small tear near one handle, where the corner of a box had pressed too hard. She had noticed it while carrying the groceries in, and for a second she had held the bottom with her other hand, the way her mother had always done. One hand through the handles, one hand underneath. Careful without thinking. That was the part that stayed with her. Not the big things people remember on purpose. Not birthdays or holidays or photographs where everyone tries to look happy enough. It was the way a hand moves under a paper bag before it breaks. The way a parent knows which drawer sticks. The way someone turns the porch light on before the person they love gets there. Her mother had done so many things before anyone could feel the need for them. The daughter had been loved ahead of time. She sat with that quietly. There was no good place to put the feeling. It did not fit neatly into regret, though regret was nearby. It did not fit neatly into thankfulness either, because thankfulness sounded too clean for what she felt. This was slower. More uneven. A kind of late understanding that came with the smell of paper, the weight of cans, and the sight of an old porch light trying its best before dark. Across the street, someone rolled a trash bin back from the curb. The plastic wheels made a hollow sound on the driveway. A dog barked once from inside a house, then stopped. The evening seemed to be putting small things away. Inside her mother's house, the kitchen would still be cooling. The cabinet doors would be closed. The soup would be on the shelf. The bananas would be in the bowl, still green at the stems. Her mother might be sitting down now, maybe with the television low, maybe with a blanket over her knees, maybe telling herself that the visit had been enough and that she had not needed more. That thought hurt a little. Not sharply. Just enough. The daughter wished she had stayed 5 minutes longer. She wished she had asked one more question and listened without checking the time. She wished she had said, "Thank you for all the years when soup appeared, when lights came on, when rides were given, when small needs were met before they had names." But the moment had already passed into evening. So she let the keys remain in her palm. The metal was warm now. The bag on the floor leaned into the shadow under the dashboard. The porch light ahead kept shining, not brightly, not beautifully, just steadily enough for a person to find the step. And for one breath, that was enough to hold. By the time she finally opened the car door, the air had cooled a little. It came in softly, carrying the smell of pavement, leaves, and somebody's dinner beginning in another house. The street was not loud, but it was never fully still. A car slowed near the stop sign. A screen door closed. Somewhere a mower gave one last uneven sound and then went quiet. She reached down for the grocery bag. For a moment, her hand paused above it. The bag was light now because most of what had been inside was already in her mother's kitchen. Only a few things remained at the bottom: a receipt, a small box her mother had said she did not need but would probably use, and a folded note from the pharmacy that had slipped between the paper folds. It had become less of an errand and more of a trace. The kind of thing left behind after care has already happened. She lifted it carefully, one hand under the bottom. The old motion returned without effort. Her mother's motion. The practical wisdom of not trusting paper handles too much. The small habit of supporting what might give way. That was how love had often looked in her family. Not like long speeches. Not like everyone sitting down to say what they meant. More like someone holding the bottom of a bag. Someone making sure the porch light worked. Someone buying the soup with less salt because the doctor had mentioned it once. Someone pretending not to be tired until the house had what it needed. She stood beside the open car door and looked toward the porch. The light there had grown clearer as the evening lowered. It touched the railing, the step, the edge of the front mat. From the sidewalk, it would look like nothing. A small bulb. A normal house. A driveway with a car in it. The kind of scene anyone could pass without turning their head. But she knew what was inside it now. Or maybe she was only beginning to know. There was the life her mother had lived in that house when the daughter was not watching. The phone calls made from the kitchen. The appointments written on calendars. The coupons clipped because saving a few dollars mattered. The checking of the weather before school, the folding of towels, The standing in line at the grocery store after work with sore feet and a quiet mind already moving toward dinner. So much had been done without witnesses. The daughter closed the car door with her hip. It made a soft, sealed sound. The keys were still in her hand, though she no longer needed them for anything. She could have put them in her purse. She could have walked toward the house and finished the evening. Instead, she stayed where she was. The driveway held her for another moment. The porch light ahead, the street behind, the bag in her hand. She was between two houses in a way that felt hard to explain. Her mother's house in front of her, full of old rooms and new slowness. Her own house waiting somewhere else, already gathering its small needs. It was not dramatic. It was just adulthood. A person standing in a driveway, holding a bag that no longer looked empty. She thought of her mother cooling the house down after years of keeping it warm. Turning down a burner. Closing a cabinet. Sitting in the chair near the window with the remote beside her, the day moving away from her little by little. Maybe she was relieved the groceries were there. Maybe she was lonely after the door closed. Maybe both feelings could sit in the same room without touching. The daughter felt that too. There was relief in having helped. There was sadness in leaving. There was gratitude, but it did not arrive brightly. It came in quietly, almost shyly, as if it did not want to make too much of itself. It came through the bag. Through the porch light. Through the ordinary sound of another car passing behind her. For years, she had thought care was something a parent gave because that was what parents did. She had not understood the choosing inside it. The repetition. The little tired yes that happened again and again, long before anyone learned to call it love. Now she could feel it in her own hand. The bag wrinkled as she adjusted her grip. Paper against skin. A small sound, almost nothing. But the evening seemed to hear it. She took one step toward the porch, then stopped again. Not because she had forgotten something. Not because she needed more time to decide. Only because there was a tenderness in the pause, and the pause had room for both of them, the mother inside, the daughter outside, and all the years between them still settling. The light stayed on. The street kept moving. And the bag held its shape. Later, the driveway seemed quieter than it had been a few minutes before. Not silent. The suburbs were almost never silent at that hour. There was still a car door closing somewhere, still the far sound of traffic on the main road, still the faint clatter of dishes from a kitchen window left open. But the noise had lowered enough for smaller things to be heard. The paper bag made a soft crease against her leg. She stood there with it, beside the car, in the part of the evening no one would ever think to remember. No photograph would keep this. No one would ask about it later. It would not become a story at a family table. It was just a woman in a driveway after visiting her mother, holding what was left of a grocery bag while the porch light made a plain circle on the step. And yet something in her had slowed. The house in front of her looked like it always had. The same siding. The same window near the kitchen. The same small planter her mother kept meaning to refill. The porch rail needed paint near the bottom, and the mat had faded from weather. Ordinary things, all of them. Things a person stops seeing after enough years. But maybe ordinary was not the opposite of tender. Maybe ordinary was where tenderness had been hiding all along. She looked toward the window and could almost see the kitchen without entering it again. The counter with its few crumbs near the toaster. The spoon still in the sink. The soup cans lined up because her mother liked to know what was there. The grocery list, written in that careful hand that had grown a little shakier but still tried to be neat. For so many years, her mother's care had lived in lists. Milk. Bread. Apples. Paper towels. School folders. Birthday candles. Cold medicine. Stamps. Batteries. The small supplies of a household, written down before they disappeared, bought before anyone was uncomfortable, placed somewhere easy to reach. A life can be held together by very small handwriting. The daughter had not known that then. She had seen the groceries, but not the remembering. She had seen the light, but not the person who turned it on. She had eaten the dinner, worn the washed clothes, run through the rooms, asked for rides, forgotten to say thank you, and slept under a roof made steady by someone else's tiredness. Now the bag in her hand felt like a quiet answer from the past. Not an accusation. Just a wait. A gentle one. The street behind her kept moving. A car passed slowly, then turned at the corner. Its red taillight slipped away between the houses. For a moment, the driveway dimmed again. The porch light remained. She thought of her own house waiting. The mail on the counter. The small things she had meant to finish that morning. The dinner that would have to become dinner. The person she would be when she got there, opening cabinets, checking the fridge, answering the question from another room, doing some small thing before anyone knew it needed doing. The old pattern had not ended. It had simply changed hands. That realization did not make her feel brave. It did not make the evening easier or cleaner. It only made her stand a little more gently inside it. There was her mother, once young, once hurried, once carrying bags through this same doorway with a child asking something behind her. And there was herself now, older than she felt, holding the bottom of a paper bag because she knew it could tear. The porch step waited. The house was cooling down. She walked toward it slowly, and the bag moved against her coat with that dry paper sound. At the door, she paused before turning the handle. Through the window, she saw a lamp on in the living room, not bright, just enough. Her mother might have left it that way without thinking. Or maybe she had thought of it. Maybe thinking of it was the whole thing. Care was often quiet enough to look like habit. She stood there one more breath. The keys rested in her palm, warm from being held too long. The bag leaned against her knee. Behind her, the street carried on, headlights moving past, people going home, other kitchens filling and emptying in their own small ways. Nothing had changed from the outside. But the ordinary house in front of her seemed fuller now. Full of years. Full of hands. Full of everything that had once been done without a name. Inside, the house had settled into its evening shape. The grocery bag stood near the door for a moment before she carried it to the kitchen. Her mother looked up from the chair and smiled as if this were nothing unusual, as if daughters always came back through lit doorways with one more small thing in their hands. Maybe that was the gentle life inside what looked ordinary. Not perfect rooms. Not the right words at the right time. Just a light left on, a bag held from underneath, a mother waiting without saying she was waiting, a daughter understanding a little later than she wished. She set the bag on the counter. The paper made one last soft sound. And in that small sound, the years did not ask to be repaired. They only rested there, warm and plain, beside the soup cans, the keys, and the quiet kitchen light.